You know, sometimes the truth is even stranger than fiction, especially if you had a dark secret in your life that would put you in danger if it were exposed. Such was my case, and this is my story. My name is Charlotte, and I'm 17 years old. I live with my mom. My dad passed away before I was born, so my mom had to raise me all by herself. My mom knew everything about me. My school studies, my friends. She had certain rules that I was supposed to follow, like eating outdoors was forbidden, and I can't be friends with someone unless she knew everything about them first, and so on. I thought these rules were somewhat paranoid, and I asked her why she placed such restrictions on making friends. Her reply was simply that you can't trust anyone nowadays. But that wasn't a very satisfying answer. And when I asked her what it meant, she didn't say anything further. As I was growing up, these rules mystified me even more, and I couldn't help but wonder if they had anything to do with my father, whom I knew nothing about. Mom always said he was a troublemaker, and she told me that everything would be clear to me in time. One holiday, I joined a new band. We held a lot of concerts. It was the best. I was good at playing music and singing. When we went camping, we met some students from other countries. We made a lot of new friends and had fun together. We even had a chance to increase our band's fame and reputation. After our first performance at camp, an Asian girl approached me. She hugged me, saying, "Charlotte, I missed you a lot." Taken aback, I asked, "Do I know you?" She surprised me again by saying, "Don't you recognize me? I'm Mary, your friend." I smiled and replied, "You must be mistaken. I don't know you." After insisting that she was indeed my friend, she excused herself and ran back to join her friends. Weird. Though, now that I think about it, I have often had an eerie feeling that someone was watching me wherever I went. I tried to shake off this feeling many occasions, but I never could. I would just tell myself that it must be my imagination. That night, we all went into the jungle. It was a jungle tour. It was very dark, and I got separated from the group and found myself alone, surrounded by trees. I called out to my friends, but no one heard me. Suddenly, I bumped into someone, a girl it seemed, and I apologized. When I turned around to look at her, I was shocked to see, well, myself, or my double. It was as if I was looking in a mirror. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm Charlotte," she replied simply. "That's impossible. I'm Charlotte," I said assertively. "Are you with us here at the campsite?" "Yes," she said. I asked her which way back to the campsite. She pointed in one direction and we headed back. As we were walking, her phone rang. It was her father. He was worried about her and was just making sure she was okay. We arrived at our tents without incidents, and I said, "It was really nice to meet you, Charlotte. I'll see you tomorrow." I felt a strong connection to the girl for some reason. Then I realized that I had forgotten my bag, and I went to get it. And again, I had that ominous feeling that I'm being watched. Suddenly, something hit me on the head. When I woke up, I found myself sitting in a car, surrounded by people wearing sunglasses, and I was really frightened. "Who are you people?" I demanded to know. "And what do you want from me?" One man told me that my dad was the reason they kidnapped me. When I told him that my dad had died a long time ago, he just laughed. Then he sprayed something on my face and I lost consciousness. When I woke up later, the other Charlotte was tied up beside me. One of the men seemed confused, seeing two of me, and he asked his boss which of us was the girl they were looking for. Suddenly, I heard someone shout, "Freeze! Don't move!" The police had come. They came out from the tree line. Surrounding the car, they arrested the men. Then they untied us both. Someone appeared looking very worried. The other Charlotte started coming too, and asked where she was and what was going on. Then she saw her dad, and she ran to him. Her dad then looked at me and asked for my name and my mother's name. When I told him, he said he knew who I was, and said to send his regards to my mom, and to tell her that he was still keeping her secret. Then he gave me a medal and hugged me, saying that he wasn't sure if we would ever meet again. I was still staring at him, looking confused, so he smiled and he asked me where my father was, and I told him that my father was dead. And then he said that that was their agreement. He and my mom, that he was only trying to protect me and the other Charlotte, who happened to be my twin sister. He said he got into some trouble in his line of work. Some people threatened to kill us, so he and my mom decided to split us up. She took you, and I took your twin sister, he said. We did this to keep you safe. I named your twin Charlotte, just the same as you. I was still feeling a bit overwhelmed at this point. This was preposterous. I couldn't believe it. Suddenly, I heard someone calling me. Charlotte, wake up! It's time for a trip. You must have been having a nightmare because you were screaming. I woke up to find myself in the tent with my friend. When I went outside the tent, I stopped. Right in front of me, staring me in the eyes, was a girl who was my mirror image. It's completely normal when we meet someone we like to want to know everything about them. We'd want to get close to that person. And if that person happens to have a secret, we'd have a natural desire to want to know what it is. In this case, one has two choices: staying with that person or staying away from that person. Let me tell you what my choice was when this happened to me. My name is Rosalind, and I'm 15 years old. I live with my dad and my brother. Mom passed away and my brother was small, and I ended up caring for all his needs. Dad was everything to us, as he loved us a lot. He liked to spend most of his time outside, though, and so I was responsible for everything inside the house, in addition to my studies, that is. Memories of my mom were the only thing I had left of her, and I would often just sit and think about her. On the first day of school, Dad was away traveling abroad. All the kids in my class were excited after hearing that we have a new teacher this year. When she entered our classroom, I was both pleased and shocked that she looked exactly like my mom. Even her smile was the same. Her name was Isabel. I just adored her looks, her charismatic manner, and her charming voice. But I wasn't the only one who was charmed by her. All my friends liked her as well. I asked her to be my friend, and she was more than happy to. I told her that she reminded me of my mom. She smiled broadly and hugged me tight. I really missed Mom. Isabel told me that if I ever needed anything, I should just come to her, that it's what best friends do. It made me so happy. After school, I saw her waiting a bit up the street for a taxi. She looked so nice standing there in her makeup and nice clothes. I had told my brother that I would introduce him to her, but as we were walking towards her, a car stopped, and she got in and left. It was a very strange car. It had very dark tinted glass that prevented anyone from seeing inside. The next day, I asked her if she was married, and she said no. I told her I saw her get in a car yesterday, and that seemed to worry her for some reason, which caused me to worry too. She said that one of her relatives happened to see her, and they drove her home. Curious, I decided to watch the same spot again tomorrow, to see if the same thing happened again. But I received a message that Dad had just got back, so I chose to head straight home. I was thrilled that Dad was back. I hugged him and told him how much I missed him. We talked a lot, and I told him about Isabel and asked him to come to school and meet her. Unfortunately, she was absent the day Dad came to meet her. I began to worry about her some more. The day after that, I went to the same place at the same time, waited for her again. I wanted to know about the car with tinted glass. After school, Isabel came and waited again for the same car. It picked her up and drove away. When I went back home, Dad wasn't home. My brother told me that Dad had gotten a phone call and left. The day after, I saw Isabel at school, and she looked very happy. So I asked her why she was so happy that day, and she told me that she had wonderful news, that she would tell me about it later. That same day, I went to a friend's birthday party. Coincidentally, there was a nightclub near my friend's house, where I could see a bunch of weird people going in. Suddenly, I spotted Isabel, arriving and entering that place too. I felt really sad seeing her enter such a weird place. After the party, I went home disappointed. Dad saw the look on my face and asked me what was wrong. I didn't really feel like talking, so he changed the subject and said that he had great news to tell me. He was going to get married again. I was not expecting this. I was so shocked that I was speechless for a few seconds. Then I asked him, "What about Mom?" He tried to explain to me, but I was beyond listening at this point. I turned around and went to my room, leaving him alone with my brother. I sat there thinking about Mom, crying alone in my room. The next day, I was still angry, and I decided to ask Isabel about the nightclub. I went to her office at school and asked her what she was doing there last night. She started to explain, but I cut her off and told her that I was disappointed. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was Dad's. Dad started explaining in her place. "I'll tell you everything," he said. Isabel's mother was very sick, and she was working there as a part-time job to save up money for her mother's surgery. Rather than hearing the actual explanation, something else caught my attention. "You know her?" I exclaimed. "I mean, how is that possible?" And he said, "I met Isabel not too long ago. I told her that I had a daughter who attended the same school that she was teaching at." Then Isabel added, "I didn't know that you were his daughter, but I loved you even before discovering that." Dad then said that that was what he was trying to tell me last night, that he was going to get married to Isabel. I broke into tears, hugging her and apologizing. Not only did I gain a mother that day, but a best friend too.
My name is Carl, and I'm 15 years old. I used to be the team leader of the school's basketball team, and I was proclaimed the best player on the team for the past 2 years. Unfortunately, I developed a bad leg infection and had to quit playing, so I became the team's coach instead. A player named Frank assumed the team leader position when I transitioned to the coach position. He and I were not on good terms. In fact, we were downright enemies. Our team, which had won many championships in the past, began losing games under Frank's leadership because he refused to follow my guidance. Some team members requested that I rejoin the team, but I told them that my leg hadn't healed yet. I was still undergoing physical therapy to regain my leg's strength. After a few months, I was well enough to start joining the team's practice sessions. The team players all hugged me and were glad to see me getting back into shape to rejoin the team. Except for Frank, that is. Frank was not pleased at all. I saw the hatred in his eyes when he realized I was going to come back and take the team leader position again. He said that I'd been off the team too long to be allowed to return to it as a team leader again. I told him that my infection was something that was beyond my control. He reminded me that there was a school tradition that one could challenge another for the team leader position by a show of bravery, which was to jump from a cliff into a lake below. So he challenged me to make that jump. If I could do it, then he would gladly relinquish his team leader position to me and give me $1,000 to boot. He was so confident because he knew that I had a fear of heights. He also knew that if I didn't accept his challenge, then I would be in an untenable position as far as all the team members were concerned, so I had no choice but to accept his challenge. He scheduled the challenge date and invited the team to watch the challenge. I was terrified, but it was now a matter of pride and dignity and a test of my mettle. My reputation was at stake. I arrived at the lake first, then the team members one by one, and then Frank arrived last. He handed the money to one of the players and said that if I couldn't make the jump, then he, Frank, would keep the money and remain the team leader. I went up to the top of the cliff and looked down. I had a moment of vertigo. I thought of backing out, but I heard the team chanting my name over and over and knew that I couldn't let them down. Their support emboldened me, and my fear lessened. I closed my eyes, screwed up my courage, and jumped. I had a feeling of having wings and flying through the air. It was only the blink of an eye before I crashed into the water feet first and went deep. Amazed that I had survived the jump, I began swimming rapidly upwards. When my head broke the surface, I enjoyed the delicious sight of incredulity on Frank's face. So I won the challenge, collected Frank's money, and was reinstituted as a team leader. The team's support gave me the courage to face my phobia and overcome my fear.